Looks like we are live. Azzy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me and see me?
I can hear you. Okay.
Am I coming clearly?
Yeah, your video is a little stilled. It's a little scratchy, or it's a little off on that end.
Okay. As long as you can hear me, then I guess I'll have to keep my face. If you guys can't see me, I'm sure you'll survive without seeing me. You'll see me at some
Well,
point.
I think it's better to keep you on because no one really wants to look at me. So
Uh,
you're definitely more pleasing to the
um,
eye.
make their Monday mornings, right? Okay, so guys, I've been sorry if it goes in and out, but hopefully you can hear me. It has been a bit of, even the last 24 hours has been an incredible thing to see the market all back in green. Last time I checked, I mean, it kept changing literally every 10 minutes when I went on CoinMarketCap, but the last time I checked, it was Bitcoin was pumping up at 3,782, I think, last time I checked, above 66 million. The entire market cap in itself is incredible. It's I mean, in terms of trading volume, it's added more than 8 billion. And what do you call it? The total market cap is now, I mean, last time I checked, 128 billion. So it's basically the highest level since January the 10th this year. And previous to that, like 16 million, what was it? $16 billion that was wiped out within that day. So yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy few months, but you know, we've survived this. We're still here. And there has been some positive sentiments coming into the market, but there has been some major developments. Again, it's like every time there's something that's been added, but it doesn't seem to show up in the price, and that's for different reasons. But from the last time I checked, apart from 4 projects, the rest of the market is in the green right now. Ripple up over 5% in the last 24 hours, Bitcoin over 6%, Ethereum double digits, over 14%, and Ryzen last time I checked, and Bitcoin Cash 11%, EOS over 14% as well. So
Yeah. Hey, Azzy, what I've done is I've just pulled up CoinMarketCap on the screen so people can see. I know you're having a little connection problems, but I've just listed, you can just see the first page, and you're right. I mean, everything is definitely green. I mean, it's crazy, right? Ethereum, you know,
yeah,
sorry, but go ahead.
yeah, and it's just several things going on. I would say it's mostly technical because, let's admit it, it has been oversold for quite some time. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and in particular, with several announcements and certain positive noises coming out from what do you call it, influential movers and shakers, it has added to that. But I wanted to touch upon Ethereum because they're literally just finished their developer conference. And it's actually one of the most important annual events. So they come together, all these Ethereum-based projects and startups, and they basically gave a development update to the audience. So that's called ETH Denver. I was about to say EthDenver, but ETH Denver. And in particular, for example, with Omisigo, OMG, they came out with a release of the alpha version of Omisigo's Plasma More VP. It's called More Viable Plasma. Basically, it's just another scaling solution on the public, on the Ethereum network. But also to add to that, you guys, I'm sure you've been following the news regarding Ethereum, what do you call it, futures and ETH, what do you call it, I literally, my mind's gone blank now. All the ETFs. I'm still on ETH. I'm still on Ethereum. Sorry. So anyway, basically, now that the government shutdown has ended, all eyes are now fixed on the resumption of the proposals submitted to the SEC. And now there was news that came out. CFTC came out with a request asking for feedback, public comments. The SEC also does that as well. And CFTC in particular, they wanted feedback on Ethereum, Ethereum's processes, the state of play, any information that would help them helping to shape their policies and whatnot. And so ErisX, it's a Chicago-based crypto exchange. They filed a comment with the CFTC, basically given positive comments about it. And there's specifically with Ethereum-backed futures, and that they feel it'll have a positive impact on the growth of the entire crypto market. Now, in about 45, literally in 45 days from now, I think they've already submitted, and was it NYSE Arca? They submitted something like 5. And there's Bitwise, and there's others that have basically been, for the last year or so, there's been different submissions. And from the time that the SEC and the CFTC mentioned that they did not consider Ethereum and Bitcoin securities, it sort of led the way, opened up the gates, a future pathway for future futures and ETFs and so on. But some of the problems, obviously, some of the challenges and concerns that they had was in regards to that there would be enough protection, investor protection against price manipulation, and making sure there's enough custodial solutions, monitoring tools. All of those things are actually in place, and the burden of proof would be on the participators, the exchanges, the individuals, CEOs and founders of these exchanges and crypto projects, that they have to make the case. Okay, it's this is what we can do. We have experience in dealing with futures, and this is where we stand. And they basically made their case to the CFTC, the SEC, to not have innovation stifled. For them to have common sense regulation, but not to be too heavy-handed, to the point where it will sort of have a detrimental effect on the disruptive technology in the ecosystem, for it to be used to help in a larger strategic moves that they're doing to help not just protect investors, but to help to grow the American economy and have influence and say in the markets as well. Now, so he mentioned that, and also they are expected to to give support spot trading with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, as well as future contracts in the second half of this year, but that's pending regulatory approval. But yeah, ErisX are seen as the competitor to back. And they're big. In terms of the partnerships and influence they have, they're working alongside Bitmain, Consensus, Digital Currency Group, NASDAQ, TD Ameritrade, and so on. And the CEO of this exchange, he is a huge Wall Street guy by the name of Thomas Chippas, and he's worked with Citi, Barclays, Deutsche Bank, and so on, and even has other influences elsewhere. Now, what's funny is that Satoshi Vision's founder, Craig Wright, you know, the guy who said, I'm actually the real Satoshi, and
Oh yeah, yeah. The fake Satoshi. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, fake Satoshi. He basically said there's still challenges, and he feels that you know, he basically gave good arguments for Bitcoin, but he's been he has a history of trashing Ethereum, and Ethereum's founder Vitalik Buterin has actually called Craig Wright a fraud. So there's two sides to the story, and he basically responded to the public. He made a public comment himself, and also Coinbase, Consensus, Ethereum Foundation made comments, and all of this collectively sort of, and also the impending Constantinople the hard fork coming up, the updates coming up. There's a good sense, and also Ethereum has been oversold, and you know, again, a lot of people will put this down to just a market correction, but the crypto world doesn't stop. There's been more and more good news that came out regarding the space, and that there's so many things I'm going to mention on Bitcoin in particular, but I wanted to mention Ethereum first because that's actually in double digits right now. Well, the last time I checked.
Yeah, well, let's take a quick look. Let's dive into this more because, I mean, it's definitely a pop. So I'm not sure if you see, I've pulled up on the screen. Ethereum is up since yesterday. In the last 24 hours, it's up 15%. I mean, that is a pretty big pop. Yeah. And I had heard about the ErisX filing, but I didn't actually read it, and I've got it up on my other screen. I'm just kind of going through this and everything, and they're making a pretty compelling case for Ethereum. I mean, do you think, is there a correlation there, or do you think there's something else, or what are your thoughts in terms of what's going on, or is it just kind of general bullish sentiment now when people are now starting to get back in? You want to expand a little bit on that, Azzy?
Yeah, so it's this where we are in the market right now, generally speaking. People do feel, okay, these developments regarding, what do you call it, on the regulatory side, on the custody solution, on the all the parts that they're, you know, there's so many moving parts to this. And the timing of this, now that the government shutdown has cleared the way for regulators to now concentrate on this space, and they've made this a priority. They've been saying this for a number of years now, especially the SEC. They've been, you know, and not just doing, you know, talking the talk, but walking the walk and cracking down on ICOs. I didn't read too much into it, but with there's a court ruling against Blockvest. The SEC had gone and contested, and now the court has actually is looking to look at the issue again, because they found that, okay, there might be proof to show that it might be securities after all. So again, there's a lot of things in the pipeline. SEC has made it their priority to go for the low-hanging fruit first in the crypto space. But what we're seeing in the next 6 months, especially, you know, to the latter end of this year, this bear market has been, I think after there was this February the 2nd, it was officially the longest bear market ever. And they were able to find several things in regards to all the work that's been made on the ground whilst we're waiting for SEC and CFTC and so on to get the act together and come out with a more standardized, more clarity on where, you know, how cryptos, people, you know, different stakeholders should proceed. So this particular time, because it wasn't just about JP Morgan having their own coin, which is on, obviously, on Ethereum via their own enterprise work or quorum platform, but it's closed. It's a closed blockchain, and no one else can't participate in it. It's strictly speaking for the institutional corporate investors spending millions or billions of dollars worth, wholesale payments business. So they're looking at all of this. The market is looking at this from from a bigger perspective. They're seeing, okay, the positive noise is coming out, even the meetings in the background. There's been a lot of talk and sort of like a consensus that at some point regulations have to come through, and they feel like a few sticking points are in the way, but they're expecting them to be clear. So anything to do, for example, with custody solutions, that's one big area which there's been several big names come out to create their own version, but also there's this collective approach in the crypto space where they're looking to find, without the without the approval of futures and ETFs and whatever. In fact, it reminds me of who do you call it? Binance's Sheng, I forgot his surname now, but Binance's CEO. So he thinks that that our space, the industry, continue to do well, continue to flourish without the approval of those two things. But what's happening, what's clear on the ground is, regardless of the bear market, the institutional investors are actually finding that the low prices right now are pretty attractive. OTC had been on the rise during the bear market, not go down. There's been many interest surveys done, to try and track sentiment of these institutional investors, and they feel like, they're pretty confident that the infrastructure, the mechanisms and processes will be there, for them to come in at some point. Properly via the official channels. But yeah, they've been strategizing, they've been in the background accumulating over the counter, and there's been a lot of expectation at some point that it may be a catalyst, ETFs and futures, the catalyst to reverse price and go back into a bull market. But we're seeing even on the ground, the market is still continuing to grow, still continuing to put in progress from different areas, different industries. Number of blockchain patents, the filings have been going up, and these are by big names like MasterCard, Visa, all the ones that you feel may be threatened by this space. They're all actually IBM. They're all getting on board and finding even JP Morgan. He's one of the most vocal, James Demon, as I call him, Demon. He was one of the vocal critics of this, and basically trashing Bitcoin. But if you look at what he's been doing and where his interests lie, that gives the game away. Like, it's all part of a big strategic move that they're making. And why would a company that's making capturing over 6 trillion a day in capital, in movement of money, why would they be concerned about using blockchain and the technology to get in there? So I think it may be a bit of a I think that the development, the blockchain aspect of it, I think the actual interest is it's genuine. I think that's absolutely authentic, because based on what they've been investing in and what they've been doing to start creating their own their own policies and their own actions with that. But I think, as I mentioned before last Monday, I don't think it bodes well for the entire crypto industry as a whole, but I do like the fact that it's given some people a bit more confidence, and to say, if someone can previously have a, you know, contrarian position, now change their mind, and feel okay, at least on the blockchain side, blockchain technology can provide advantages, and they can't ignore it. They can't, you know, continue to bash it and whatnot publicly. That they're going to find ways. I mean, the results speak for themselves. They're saving time, money in terms of transaction fees. So there's a lot of, if it didn't have those advantages, they simply wouldn't even look at it, wouldn't even give it their time of day. But clearly, this is affecting the banking industry, the financial industry. It has been for a number of years, actually. They've been carefully watching this and seeing how blockchain can help them. But now there's a real impotence with, you know, all the work, collective work being done on the ground, even on the regulation side. The fact that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So the market's kind of moving with that, and it's reflecting in the sentiment. They feel like several announcements that came out over the course of the last week is helping to, and also with price action, it was oversold. It's been selling off for since the beginning of this year. So, you know, we're beginning to see the market really, and we're seeing this with volume, by the way. It's increased, and in fact is the highest of this year. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I do feel that it's not just ErisX, it's not just what do you call it, NYSE Arca, Bitwise, VanEck, SolidX, the BTC. You know, we're going to see more and more of these exchanges and different parties coming together and looking to submit proposals, or even just go out and communicate and come to have a sit down and really make, at least, okay, if we're going to have regulations, they're going to try and use their influence and make it work for them as much as they can. And so there is a bit of a collaborative approach happening right now, which is good to see.
Hey, Azzy, just to interrupt you, because I know a few people might not be as intimately familiar with JP Morgan and specifically the JPM coin. Can we take a second and just dive into what they're actually doing? What is the JPM coin and what it does?
Sure. No worries.
Yeah, so do you want to take a second, maybe explain what they're trying to do with it? You want to take a second and do that? And then let's just dive more into it.
Okay, so basically, they are the biggest bank in the US, and they, last time I checked, they was it over 85% of Fortune 500 companies are their clients, and JP Morgan is literally typical traditional institution. They've been one of the parties as well back in 2008 that was involved, several others as well. But JP Morgan's founder, the CEO in particular, he has been bashing Bitcoin and cryptos, saying certain things like Bitcoin is a fraud, saying you have to be in a dystopian, utopian, a future for, what was it? I can't remember his exact words, but something like a dystopian future where cryptos would, that's the only way it'll work. But in the background, JP Morgan has actually been filing patents. They've been, I think it was part of the Ethereum Alliance Network. They joined, Ethereum Enterprise Alliance with 30 other founding members, including Microsoft. They've been, I think it's coming up to 2 years now. So that he and JP Morgan has been in the background working on ways that they can best leverage this technology. And they wanted to find something that will give their clients value, something that they can obviously have sustainable margins in this new, you know, it had to, you know, this is why they've been doing these pilot tests. And JP Morgan's founder, his daughter even had, you know, she bought Bitcoin at the height of, you know, back in, was it late 2017, September, October time. And he literally publicly commented and said, you know, my daughter bought Bitcoin, she saw the value go up, and now she thinks she's a genius. And so he was really mocking the, you know, he's known to mock the industry, but yet he's been getting involved, one way, shape or form, and he's been consistently building it. You know, and so with JPM Coin, it's literally, it's a stable coin, it's a form of a stable coin, so it's backed by the US dollar. One JPM coin equals $1, and it's redeemable after the, for example, if let's say Facebook, which is one of their clients, wanted to settle a payment to another client, to another party, a supplier or whoever, or pay their employees or something. They use JP Morgan for their services to, you know, send money across different parts of the world, but it's in the sometimes millions, or it can even be, you know, some clients can send billions of dollars. So anyway, JP, with the JPM coin, it's designed to, normally like with these wire transfers, it can take days using the legacy systems, but they realize actually it can be settled in real time, which means instantly, any time of the day, 24 hours a day. In the old system, you had to literally have to abide by their opening and closing times, and depending which country you're sending it or whatever, they have different, you know, processes, different times that it gets cleared. Now, one of the benefits, they realized it was instant, so you save so much time, and also the transaction fees were absolutely minimal. And that's one of the biggest things with cross-border payments, with remittances and so on. It's a huge area, it's a huge market, and that's why they've been looking to find ways that they can literally cut down on the costs and on the time aspect as well. So so their clients are, you know, they've, you know, consulted with their clients and whatnot, just to get their feedback and idea internally. And they, you know, brought in several people. They actually hired people behind closed doors to work on a solution for them. I think his name is Umar Farouk, the head of their blockchain division. And yeah, he's been making positive noises about the advantages of JPM Morgan for their institutional clients. And if that goes well, we may even see mobile payments being made as well. So their clients could do this on their phone. And who knows, they may even introduce it to their own private, right now it's to institutional corporate clients, but it may be to institutional individual investors as well, like high net worth clients that they work with. So yeah, with JPM Coin, they're looking basically to take advantage of the technology because it is one of the arguments against JPM Morgan is it's not decentralized. In fact, it shouldn't even be called a cryptocurrency. It's more of a digital currency.
Okay. Hey, Azzy, just to stop you for a second, before we jump on, I just want to make sure I understand what you said then. So if I were to summarize what the JP Morgan coin does, is that there are maybe, you know, and I've got this chart put up, you know, there's basically 3 steps in terms of how the JPM coin would work. And what it is doing is that in the past, if I was a client and I wanted to transfer money from, say, the US to the Netherlands, or from London to Singapore, or somewhere around the world, now instead of having to use these systems that are in play, such as perhaps Swift or Zelle or some of those sorts of systems, I can use the JPM coin and the blockchain that it's built on, which is, I assume, is built on Quorum to solve that problem, right? So that hypothetically does the cross-border, there's an application for cross-border payments. Now, from my understanding, there's a second application where hypothetically for securities transactions where, and help me understand if I understand this correctly from what I got from you, for a securities transaction, if I had to move something again from, say, my account to in the US to a foreign account, or between two people, or between me and you, in the past we had this whole chain of custody and all these back office people. And what the JPM coin also could be used for would be to eliminate that. And again, house that on the blockchain. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, absolutely. And the whole point of this is really to give transparency to their actual clients. Because what the technology does amazingly is it gives accountability and traceability. Even though this is a permissioned blockchain, so in this case, you have to be authorized by JP Morgan to be able to have access to the JPM coin. So when you come in with your US dollars, you can actually redeem them on a one-to-one basis. But it's really also for all of the clients that they work with and any other party involved, they'd be able to see on their blockchain because of how they've created it, they'd be able to get that clarity, and that what is it called? It's basically to allow trust to happen. Now, the whole point of blockchain, though, the whole point of decentralized cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum and so on, the whole point is to eliminate that third party, that there should be no single controlling party involved. So that in terms of its definition, with how it's understood in the industry and the spirit, the ethos of it, it actually goes against that. But for their clients, it's actually a step up, because if it's given them if it's saving them money, if it's given them extra time, but also more importantly transparency, and that trust is already within the system, they'll be able to track everything and see, and have real-time issuance, real-time settlement. That again is one of the big reasons why James Dimon did not ignore this completely and decided to expand on this. And again, when I say they received feedback, they did consult some of their clients, some of other people in the industry, to see how they can make this feasible. Because if it didn't work for their clients and for JP Morgan, they simply wouldn't be involved in it, because apparently this is just a bit glorified, meaning or it could be perceived as a stunt, because with their traditional systems or the traditional processes, they can actually still go ahead and have those processes with how JP Morgan operates. They can still do it, but they've decided to digitalize it in this way in order to take advantage of the advantages in the space, basically. But they're not really.
So now let me ask you a question. Let's just go back to the first one, which is international wire transfers or international money transfers. Now, what JPM coin or JP Morgan JPM coin is doing sounds a lot like the problem that Ripple is trying to solve.
Correct.
So,
yeah. Cross-border payment.
So I mean, the first thing I see is it looks like JP Morgan is, they poked their head out of the sand and said, "Hey, we see what Ripple's doing. We see how Ripple actually is solving a problem, but we don't like Ripple. We're going to do our own thing." And because, I mean, I think, is JP Morgan the largest bank in the world? I mean, if they're not number one, they're definitely in the top 5. I mean, basically they're saying, we're going to move
in the world, one of the largest. Yeah.
We're going to move our trillions of dollars or whatever, right? So if I look at the, I've got the Ripple site put up, and they're saying Ripple's whole thing is about, 1.6 trillion in annual costs that we will eliminate with blockchain by going after Swift. But if JP Morgan, the world's biggest bank, is now saying, hey, we're doing it, we're looking to do it on our own stuff, and we have the vast majority of the money transfer that goes back and forth, because not only are they the biggest bank, but if they move all their volume on this chain, I would imagine many of the smaller banks would also then just follow along with JP, because they're going to say, well, are we going to build Ripple stuff where we don't know who's using it, or are we just going to follow along? How does that impact things? And right, how does that impact things? What is your opinion on that? And yeah, I mean, what's going on? I guess is the big question.
Number one, this, I mean, there's no doubt about it. The fact that the, the industry didn't take to price-wise, that it didn't, create this huge buy wall. It didn't go crazy. We didn't see an explosion of positive sentiment around it. And partly, yes, of course, is to do with his reputation as being a villain. But it's also more importantly to do with the fact that how it's structured. And I wanted to address how this would impact the industry. Other banks are taking notice of this, and they really have to make a decision about where they stand. So, are they going to go with existing service providers like Ripple that would allow them to sort of like get the best of both worlds? They don't have to do all of the, background work, or all of the costs associated with starting your own crypto, or creating a block, having a blockchain from scratch. Another thing is that they would not want to go to their competitors. If another bank, maybe like JP Morgan or other banks that they face, because there's different subsectors. Some of them are a bit different, like they have more they have more influence in the market. So your average, like your mom and pop bank, not the major ones, but the smaller ones, they're looking to see this. They would prefer going with Ripple, for example, rather than JP Morgan. Again, it depends on the costs, and they would have to compare it. But one thing for sure, the banking industry will be looking at this and be making their choices to see, okay, are we going to go with JP Morgan? Are we going to on board with another company that comes by that could show us efficiencies and in the ways that we can gain using this space, or we're going to on board with Ripple and leverage their skills, experience, and reach and everything, and the major partnerships that Ripple have been that they've onboarded, and it's been growing, not declining, not stopping. It's actually just added to the future value of Ripple, which I think will go up. But what's been happening is that banks are now forced to admit to themselves, okay, this is not something we can ignore. This is not something we can stand on the sidelines. We're going to have to make our own move at some point and have an approach or policy to this, because they don't want to get left behind. They have to adapt or die. And so with JP Morgan, though, because it's blocked, the blockchain is permissioned, but Ripple is decentralized.
Well, Ripple is, let's clear, Ripple isn't technically decentralized. Ripple, like you and me can't just set up a Ripple node. Ripple is kind of a closed system also.
Yes, but at the same time, you can't buy JPM Coin on CoinMarketCap. With Ripple, you can. It's open to different investors. But another thing, though, is that there's several major reasons that would show us, from what we can see, that the Ripple community, the Ripple investors in particular, there's a lot more support, and that can't be dismissed either. Even with JP Morgan, it feels almost like there's it's two separate niches. So yes, it's going for cross-border payments. It is working with big clients, institutional clients and other big name brands, but still the way they're approaching it, it's there's enough in the market, there's enough in the industry for everyone to eat, basically. But there's still some there's enough differences between Ripple and what JP Morgan with their JPM coin is doing, that they'd still, you know, we're not gonna you know, it depends on what happens obviously with JP Morgan, whether they expand this to other areas, but from what I'm seeing, Ripple shouldn't feel threatened by what JPM coin has done. Now, yeah, other banks could issue their own crypto. They could get on board with JP Morgan, but I feel like it's going to be different areas. It really does depend, not one size fit all. So you're going to have some that prefer Ripple over JPM Morgan because it works for their long-term strategy, and others that will go for JPM Morgan because they're big name, well-established traditional finance finance company. So, you know, there's no absolutes here, and no one party's going to end up, you know, having a monopoly on cross-border payments or any area to do with, you know, movement of capital worldwide. So what we're seeing anyway is that the traditional finance, the banks, the individual, these people are now feeling, in fact, it's beyond that. They are forced to adapt, regardless of what they do and how they approach it. They are forced to do that. They can't continue going you know, with the previous things that they've gotten away with. So there's people, there'll always be people that will back Ripple, people that will back Bitcoin, Ethereum for different reasons. And I think there's enough room for everyone in the space. It just depends what niche you want to work on, what benefits there are specific to you that will help you. But yeah, what we do know though, this is a sign, it's sort of like a heads up to the banking industry that they have to do something. JPM Morgan, and I do see actually more banks falling in line. They're either going to end up doing what JPM does and make it closed and cater to their own clients and have more, what do you call it, more restrictions placed, or they're going to on board with Ripple, or they're going to do something else. Now, the problem is with the censorship, and also the fact that it can be manipulated and controlled. That's one of the concerns if you have a blockchain, if you have a permission blockchain or a coin, a digital asset that's in control by one party, and they get to change rules anytime and potentially freeze your assets for one particular or another reason, who knows. But the fact that the power and control is it's 100% in JP Morgan's hands, rather than in the case of Ripple, where you have all these different parties investing, participating, and you have a lot more, what would you call it? You have a lot more open. So Ripple is far more open than what JPM Morgan's doing. However, Ripple still, there's suspicion still surrounding Ripple, because the fact that their clients are, you know, these are institutional clients that they're working with, they're not trusted by the majority of people either. So, you know, it depends. It really does depend what they're trying to get out of this space. And Ripple is trying to be the bridge between the institutional, you know, world and the crypto world. So that's where they're positioned.
So I guess, so Azzy, maybe let's use an analogy, and I'd be curious to get your opinion. I look at JPM Coin versus Ripple, similar, and keep in mind, right, there still is Bitcoin or the fully decentralized currencies where we can send, you know, Bitcoins or Litecoins to everyone. But I would look at that as Ripple might be something similar to Venmo. Have you heard of Venmo before, or do you have Venmo out in England where you're at?
That name rings a bell. What is it?
So Venmo is an app. It's currently owned by PayPal, but it's an app that's used where basically for sending money back and forth. Think of it like a better version of PayPal. And what's happened is in the last 2 years, and this is an article from summer of 2018, a group of banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, basically the big banks came together and created the service called Zelle. And Zelle is a payments app that is now starting, and I was just looking for numbers, I don't know the exact numbers, but literally within the span of a year or two, because the 7 major banks in the US came together and launched it, it now is transacting more, call it micropayments between people, or just as much as Venmo.
Mm.
So, like I said, and I agree with you, you know, we'll have to see where things shake out and where people will go. But ultimately, I see a lot of parallels, at least between the JPM coin, or the initial interaction of that, and Zelle, and similar to what you know, Venmo is to perhaps Ripple or some other sort of quasi decentralized, but somewhat, you know, somewhat put together type of an app. And I don't have the answer either, but I just think it's an interesting comparison to make. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I definitely think there is a big shift going on regardless of who you speak to, in the payments world, in the remittance world, you know, in the finance, in the, you know, with the legacy company, I call them legacy companies now, legacy banks, and with this new space, it's, you know, everyone's trying to basically carve a piece of land in this industry and seeing what will work for them. And it really is a stab in the dark right now. Obviously, we've had 10 years worth of, you know, collective evidence to see, okay, there's certain things, you know, these are the mistakes made, they've learned from them and been able to develop new ideas and projects and so on. But now it's really to do with who's going to take the lead, who's going to show leadership in this area. So JP Morgan, in terms of on the traditional banking side, they're definitely the first one to plunge in with their own coin and say, hey, this is what we're doing. I do think, however, I don't see Ripple suffering from that, or other cryptos having any sort of detrimental effect. I just feel the industry as a whole is going to expand, and it will have, what we're basically seeing is that the industry is becoming more fragmented, more mature. There's different you know, problems, different niches, and you know, as what this really does is underline, it sort of scores that that point being made by the space over and over again, despite a bear market, that all the big people, all the big boys, all the companies that, you know, are your you find them in your typical high street, or they're known to be one of the big ones that were involved in the 2008 financial crash. You know, up and down, there's a straight consensus. This actually proves that you know, cryptos and blockchain is here to stay. It's a big statement to make, but just based on the number of players coming in from not only the traditional, from the legacy, you know, industries, they're also new players in the, you know, in the space, literally paving the way and showing that there's, you know, especially if they have real world use case, that there's real value to be given, and to there's real growth and opportunities in the space. And so eventually price will catch up to all of these developments, but the fact that you have pensions providers coming in, you have academics getting involved, you have people from all walks of life, you know, regardless of what power and influence they have, come in and try and find their feet in this space, regardless of where we are in the market, bear market, bull market. That it's now like the, you know, where we are right now, people have sobered up, people are taking this more seriously, and there is an expectation that institutional money will come into the industry at some point, but basically it has to be on their terms. This is why I'm seeing over and over and over again that these major players are, they're not put off by what's going on. In fact, they're taking this as an attractive opportunity to enter the market in some way, shape, or form. It may not be price-wise, it may not be, accumulating Bitcoin or Ethereum. It may be by actually going ahead and, creating custody solutions or opening up trading desks, or it's happening in different ways. And all of that collective push is actually, actually building the foundation. It's growing its digital roots, as I like to say. So there's a lot going on. I mean, with Bitcoin in particular, it's survived so much, and the industry looks at this, the traditional industry looks at Bitcoin as, okay, that asset class is certainly more risky, but they're not new to risk. And the fact that it survived over 300 untimely so-called deaths and still survived, there's a lot of work being done that's not being reported or recognized, and that will eventually catch up. But it's going to feel like Bitcoin's going to be an overnight success to some people that will be coming in the industry when it depends, like, because of the tech adoption cycle. You have different parties coming in, but the fact that JP Morgan has now signaled to their industry and the crypto industry, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to capture market share, which is what it boils down to. So I definitely see more participation happening with institutions, big players, as I mentioned, pension funds getting involved. It was just recently, there was an announcement, 2 of them are getting in. And also with Changpeng Zhao, Binance CEO, he's been bullish in the market, and the work that Binance has been doing, other exchanges like Coinbase have been doing behind closed doors and in public too, that is going to continue. They're going to continue pushing the narrative out, that regardless ETFs, futures or not, this space is here to stay. Digital currencies will be the future. Now that we've got stable coins, they're becoming more, they're becoming more niche. That you have different types. You have ones that are backed by gold, backed by fiat currencies like dollar. You're going to have stable coins backed by oil or backed by food, water, you name it, anything of value. Stable coins will be, I definitely see more and more of that area being created, and also it helps in terms of reducing volatility, giving more stability in the market. But this freedom, this increased choice that we have in the market is actually good for the industry overall. The more diverse it is, the more, not just the technology or the projects, the more diverse the players are, the investors are, the better it would be overall for the industry. And it's going to be interesting to see. Grayscale actually came out with a report. It's a digital asset management fund. They've been saying for quite some time, like they're bullish in this space long term. But it came out, I think, on the 14th, saying that institutional capital is actually increasing from institutional investors, and that they surveyed I think over 60-something% of the money that Grayscale is making with this particular area is based on institutional investors' confidence and appetite on that. And they're finding that their clients are looking beyond where we are right now in the bear market, number of years. This is something that they're basically building, their positions. It's really strategic, and over time, what they're going to see looking back, not just at the last 10 years of Bitcoin's history, but they're looking at this point in the bear market right now and recognizing it actually this would be a great place to come in and do some either to invest or to develop something where they'll be able to take advantage of, and it will pay off long term. And
okay, great. Hey, Azzy, it's about time to wrap up. Before we jump into another rabbit hole, grayscale, do you want to just kind of maybe wrap things up with some final comments?
Yeah, sure. So, and on top of that, actually, Cambridge Associates as well, an associate of them, a consultant, had also gave some positive sentiment and in regards to pensions and endowments, and that is going to come to a point where they're looking to use, it's a new asset class, and they feel that it's a great way to diversify. And that, of course, any risks attached to, especially if it's a new technology, they're fully aware of that and they'll price that in. But they, the fact that they're now publicly saying this, and it's not just what's happening in the, in front of our eyes or what's been reported, a lot of the work is actually happening behind closed doors. And the fact that we have New Hampshire, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Colorado, different states coming in to start, to integrate cryptos via Bitcoin, to accept Bitcoins as payment for the local taxes, state taxes or business taxes. This is all what we're seeing overall anyway. Also, bills being introduced in Washington, D.C. as well, even in the local state legislators as well. But yeah, there's this overall consensus, like, it's, what do we do with this new technology? We can't ignore it. We're going to have to find and adapt and find ways that we can benefit from this. That's really the core at it. And it's because there is a strong community overall in the crypto space. It has demonstrated real world use case. We've seen what happened with the use of Bitcoin in Venezuela and Zimbabwe. And we've seen what happened with Iran being inspired to create their own, real-backed, own crypto to evade sanctions from the US. So for different reasons, different parties are, looking at this space and creating new strategies, creating new platforms to be able to take advantage of the growth in this space. And also, very quickly to add to that, e-commerce, the Amazon, the Japanese Amazon version called Rakuten, they've come up with a new payment app as well that's going to integrate and accept cryptos. So all of this is adding CoinSquare as well. They've acquired another company as well. So, Bitmain as well. They've come up with a more efficient mining chip. Again, just to wrap it up, everything is where we are right now in the market is the right time. It doesn't matter who you speak to. Work is still being continued on the ground to be able to make this space to help to drive adoption and make it more acceptable to different parties and find ways that they can profit from it. So yeah, good things coming.
Sounds good. Well, for everyone who's still tuning in, thanks for listening in. We will be back on Monday, and we'll continue keeping everyone updated. Hey, thanks a lot, Azzy, for your wealth of knowledge. It's been incredible. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.